Hello. It's been a while since I've made a video. I think the last video I made was in July or August of last year. So apologies to anyone who had been enjoying my videos. But I did have a good reason for disappearing off the face of the earth, which is that I was hired by a VFX studio to come and work as a CG generalist full-time. The studio is Mare Studios. Mare Studios you might know from their work on The Green Knight or Disney's Peter Pan and Wendy, Hocus Pocus 2, as well as a rake of other brilliant films, including the brilliant independent film The Wanting Mayor, which was directed by Nicholas Ash Bateman, and I consider that film to kind of be the North Star for any aspiring VFX artists in terms of its kind of embracing of the techniques that I would talk about here a lot, of using visual effects for independent filmmaking in really creative and brilliant ways. The film was shot on a very low budget with a very small crew. I think it was in a warehouse they filmed it against blue screen, and it's a brilliant movie and very inspiring for anyone who's interested in the concepts that I talk about here. So that's why I've been gone. I've also been directing. I just released a few months ago a short film that I directed last year called Please Do Not Disturb, which is a short, dark drama that all takes place in a hotel room in Dublin City. The film is available to watch on this channel. There's a link in the description if you'd like to watch it. And today I thought I would just dive into some of the visual effects in the film. It is a film that outwardly would appear to have no visual effects in it, I hope. But there are a few in there, and I thought I might look at 3 different visual effects shots in the movie. One which I think is bad. I think I did a bad job with it. I think it's a bad use of visual effects. It's an example of fixing something in post. But I thought it'd be interesting to look at that. The other one I think is a good use of visual effects. And if you have a keen eye for this kind of thing, you might have noticed it. Although I hope you didn't. And the other one is one that I think nobody noticed. Nobody ever would. And I think it's my favorite use of VFX in the movie. So yeah, I thought we could look at 3 case studies of using visual effects for an independent short film. Obligatory disclaimer here: if you haven't seen the film, please do watch it. I'm going to have to spoil it to discuss the visual effects. And it's only 18 minutes long, and it's a nice little film, and it's got a few nice twists and turns, so I'd appreciate it if you'd watch the film before watching this. But also, you can just watch this if you don't care about the film. That's fine too. Maybe I'll convince you to watch it over the course of this video. Probably not with this first shot, because the first one I'm going to talk about is the worst use of visual effects in the film. It's a case of removing a reflection of a crew member in the TV screen. In this case, it was our boom operator, who was square in the frame, reflected in this TV. Incredibly obvious. I don't know how I missed it. So what I did to fix it was I took the shot into After Effects. I found a clean frame of the TV with no reflection in it. I tracked the camera move in After Effects and then just placed that, still frame of the blank screen with no boom operator in it over it, and then rotoscoped out the actor as he walks in front of it. Now, the reason I think it's a bad job, this kind of thing is done in films all the time. It's not, I think it's a good practice. I just don't think I did a good job at it because I got kind of lazy and I felt nobody would notice it. I don't think anyone did notice it, but I decided to not waste any time trying to include the actor's reflection in the TV. So actually, as he walks past it, you can see he has no reflection, which doesn't make any sense unless you interpret the film as being about a vampire. So yeah, I thought I'd show kind of the lazy one first, that this is a use of visual effects to fix a mistake on set, as opposed to, planning it and using it as a tool, which is what I did in this next example, which is a good use of visual effects and one I'm very proud of. So, big spoiler alert for the film. Again, if you haven't watched it, watch it, but whatever. The ending of the film takes place in a hospital, and if any of you out there have made the unfortunate decision as I have to write a scene in a hospital, you'll know how hard it is to film in one at the moment. What with COVID and everything else, they're incredibly difficult to film in. So I emailed every place I could think of. I even got to the point, I think, of looking at dentists' offices and stuff, just anything remotely medical looking. and I could not get anything. I ended up getting in contact with the nursing schools in Dublin where we shot the film, where they train nurses, because they have kind of fake like hospital wards where they train people, and they look realistic, and they do hire them out to filmmakers. But the only one who replied gave us a quote of €3,000 a day to film in. So probably shouldn't be divulging this, but that was pretty close to the budget for the film. So I said no, thank you, and instead decided to go for the plan, which I was kind of honestly excited to do anyway. So in a way I was a little relieved, because I wanted to test this theory I had about using visual effects in films like this. So I went to the next closest building to the hotel where we were filming, which was not intentional, but it just happened to be the one that I needed. It was a community center, and they had, they hire out this big hall that they have to, speakers who are giving events and stuff. But I didn't want the hall. I wanted the little room right next to it where they store all the chairs and stuff. It was just a simple room with white walls, and it cost €25 an hour. And I rented it out for 3 hours, so it was €75. And that is the hospital that you see at the end of the film. So if you look at this shot here, this is what it looked like when we shot. So Dermot Crowley, the incredible actor playing Bernard in the film, Dermot was in the original Star Wars, he is lying on a table with some couch cushions on it, and everything except the actors, the wall, and the door is CG. All done in Blender, but nobody so far has pegged it as a visual effects shot, which I'm very proud of. So I think that's a good use of visual effects. This is what I'm excited by, and this is kind of the premise of a lot of my videos, is using visual effects to, enhance storytelling, as opposed to using it to bludgeon the art of cinema to death. Utilizing the strengths of a computer to help tell a very human story. And I think people like Ian Hubert are speaking to something similar, in his work. It's all just for pushing the story forward. It's not VFX for the sake of VFX, it's VFX for the sake of story. And that's why I'm proud of this shot. So the third example is, I think, the kind of foremost example of using visual effects to enhance story in this film. An important plot point in this film is that the character of Bernard has taken a lethal overdose of paracetamol, and he reveals it towards the end of the film.
Why did you ask me here?
I asked you here because 45 minutes ago I took 16 paracetamol, and very shortly I'll be dead.
And when we were shooting on the day, we did a few takes, and then I noticed that Dermot was always looking down at his watch on his wrist, which was resting on the arm of the chair, and I thought it was a beautiful touch, and I had the idea then to just tilt down to the watch into a close up, as he's saying, 45 minutes ago I took 16 paracetamol, and very shortly I'll be dead, and land back on his face for the word dead, and it worked really well. We did, I think, 3 takes with the camera move. And the first one was the best one for performance. His performance was perfect, and the camera move stopped dead on his face when he said dead. The only problem was the watch was out of focus, because we kind of improvised this camera move, and the focus puller just it just took another take before we fully locked it in. However, that was the best take for performance. So a very simple, elegant solution. I hopped into the next take, which was the best take for focus. I went to a frame where the arm was most prominent in frame, and it was perfectly in focus. I paused it, and on that frame I masked the arm out, rendered it on a transparent background, and then brought that over into the first take, tracked the camera move in the first take, and just pasted that arm. And it's actually just a still. If you look at it, you can kind of tell it's just a photo, like the arm doesn't move at all, which it shouldn't because it's resting on the armchair, but it's actually just a still from the next take. So when it tilts down, it's perfectly in focus, and it's a composite shot of 2 different takes, and I don't think you'd ever notice. In fact, when I watch it, I often forget that.
That's not why I asked you here.
Why did you ask me here?
I asked you here because 45 minutes ago I took 16 paracetamol and very shortly I'll be dead.
A lot of people have pointed out the kind of Fincher-esque way in which the camera relates to the actors, which is an astute observation, because David Fincher was a huge impact on the way in which I made this film and also the way in which I use visual effects, very frequently tracking actors' movements so that the camera perfectly matches their motion. When they move, the camera moves. When they stop, the camera stops. And again, that's something that has to be done on set. You have to have a good operator, but it can be enhanced in post just using After Effects. So yeah, that's a breakdown on how I utilize VFX in my film Please Do Not Disturb, which again, you can watch at the link in the description. And just this past weekend I was directing a new short film, and again have lots of similar things like that planned. It's a great tool to have in your toolkit, and the principles and actually the execution of those principles are very straightforward. You know, a few YouTube tutorials on After Effects and Blender, and you could do any of those effects that I did. And while my work at Mare Studios requires me to have a very powerful computer, I completed all of this on this broken laptop, which was broken when I was working on the film. I actually used to just have to prop this up against like a pile of books or something. I suppose my point is, like, no excuses. If you want to make your movie, make your movie. Don't be priced out of shooting a scene in a hospital. Just make a hospital on your broken laptop for €75 and go make your movie. So yeah, hope that's inspiring or helpful or something, and thanks for watching.